Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here. So in today's video, I have a preseason recap for you. So the Washington football team lost to the New England Patriots 22-13. So I'll give you guys a recap of the game, talk about some of the biggest takeaways of today's game and talk about, whose stock went up and whose stock went down. So if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe for Washington and NFL content. I'm on the road to 6,000 subscribers, so it would really mean a ton if you guys could help me get there, and also hit that like button. Let's get right into the video. Okay, so like I said, the Washington football team lost to the Patriots 22-13 in their first preseason game. But of course, it's a preseason and the score really doesn't matter. It's just about how, your main players performed and some of those back end guys as well. And I think let's start out with the starters. And I think overall, the first team defense and the first team offense looked pretty good. I mean, Fitzpatrick looked really good, went 5 for 8, 58 passing yards, had an 84.4 passer rating. Also, had that he had a good ball to Adam Humphries, but Adam Humphries slipped right before the ball got to him, and that would have not only been complete, but also would have extended the drive, and they probably would have scored on that drive as well. And then I think one of his other completions was, a pass a little bit behind Antonio Gibson, and the other, Terry McLaurin, got his hands on it, but the corner made a really good play there. But I think Fitzpatrick played pretty well, looked comfortable in the pocket, and looked comfortable under pressure. I thought he looked pretty sharp. Let's talk about some of the other guys. Terry McLaurin looked good. He looked, had 2 catches for 25 yards, had that 22-yard reception. He looked good overall. Same thing with Logan Thomas, had 1 catch for 24 yards. I mean, the ones really didn't play much. I thought Gibson looked like himself. I mean, he had 5 catches for 15 yards, but he looked good. He looked explosive. He looked quick. And also what I liked is that they involved him a little bit more in the passing game, which is what a lot of people wanted to see. He got targeted 3 times, but remember, he only played like 2 or 3 possessions. So I like that they involved him a little bit more in the passing game, offensive line wise. Before we get to the quarterback, I thought, the first team offensive line played pretty well. I mean, Sam Cosmi looked pretty good in my opinion. Yeah, he had a couple misses, I think, on a run block where Gibson could have had a big play, but besides that, he looked really good, and he played the whole first half and didn't allow a sack. And I don't even know if he allowed a pressure. Looked pretty good. I'm excited to see what he can continue to do. He's got some film to watch to improve himself, and I think he's going to be a good starting right tackle for us this season, and potentially we can move him to left tackle next season. Really like that. The rest of our offensive line, Leno looked good. Most of our offensive line, our starting offensive line, at least, looked pretty good. And now let's get into our second team. And one quick thing about the first team before we get into the second team. It was unfortunate that they couldn't get any points on the board, but I felt overall as a unit they looked pretty good, and honestly should have had 3 points if Dustin Hopkins wouldn't have missed an easy 40-yard field goal, which we will definitely talk about later. And I think Adam Humphries had that slip where if he doesn't slip, maybe they get even closer to field goal range or even get a touchdown. But overall, really like what these guys did on offense, at least on the first team. And the second team, I thought Heineke played pretty well. 9 for 15, 86 yards, got sacked once, and his pass rating was 76 on the dot. He also had 1 touchdown that was, he threw a really good pass to Ricky Seals-Jones in the end zone, and the defender was holding his arm and pulling it back and even hitting his body a little bit, and they somehow didn't call it. That was going to be a touchdown. So in my book, it's the preseason. The score really doesn't matter, but I think I'm counting that as a touchdown for Heineke and Ricky Seals-Jones. Some other things, I thought Heineke, that ball to Tamarick Hemingway, I didn't really like that decision. It is the preseason, but still threw it into double coverage. Really didn't have a chance to complete it, and a couple other passes were behind some of the receivers, but I felt like Heineke played pretty solid, got them a touchdown, so he played pretty well. And real quick, we'll get into Dustin Hopkins, I guess, right now, because man, oh man, we really need to bring in a kicker, at least for some competition, to, make Hopkins feel like he could possibly lose his job, because, I mean, he missed a 40-yarder, which is a give me in the NFL. I mean, you should be making all 40. I mean, a 40-yarder is not hard for an NFL kicker. He also absolutely shanked a 50-yard field goal. Wasn't close at all. That is something that we need to just at least, even if it's not to replace him, bring in someone to give him some competition. And yeah, maybe Cameron Cheeseman, had mistimed it or something. Although I thought they were pretty good, but I heard some people talk about it on Twitter. We'll hear it a little bit later on, but I thought we definitely need to do something about that. Some of the other guys on the second team, Barber did okay, had a touchdown, 20 total yards. Some of the second team receivers / tight ends, John Bates had a nice catch for 19 yards. I thought he played pretty well, was a solid blocker. Sammis Reyes, I mean, he had 2 catches for 25 yards. He looked pretty good, still a little bit, a little awkward there, but I thought he was pretty good. De'Ami Brown looked good. Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to talk about. Taylor Heineke kind of overthrew him on one of those passes. That could have been a big play. I thought De'Ami Brown played pretty well, got open, and looked pretty good. They didn't play him too much, but he was with the second team. Dax Milne also looked solid, 2 catches for 16 yards. Also had a really, really good return. Let's go on to the defense real quick before we get back onto the offense. I thought for the most part, our defense looked pretty solid. I thought, Chase Young with that, play right there. I mean, he just demolished Isaiah Wynn, and somehow they didn't count that as a sack for Chase Young. Usually they do. He forced the fumble. But that was a great play by Chase Young. Deron Payne, you just got to jump on that ball. They got to work on that, because in a real game, that is a you have to come down with that ball. So I thought Chase Young looked great. The defensive line, again, these guys played a couple of possessions, and, they looked solid. I didn't really see much out of, Cameron Curl and Landon Collins. I really wanted to see how Landon Collins, was coming off the injury, but they didn't really get tested deep. One thing that I liked is that they did have Benjamin St-Juste, William Jackson, and Kendall Fuller on the field at the same time, and Kendall Fuller was inside, and William Jackson and Benjamin St-Juste were on the outside. So I like that. I like that they were, switching it up a little bit. They had a bunch of different packages on defense, and, Benjamin St-Juste, I did not hear his name much, and that is a good thing when you are a corner. He made a couple plays, and when you don't hear your name much as a corner, usually that's pretty good. Torrey McTyer had a couple of solid plays, had a nice pass break, or, in the end zone, he had some good coverage. Some people might say the receiver should have caught it, but McTyer had his hand in right there. I think that would have been incomplete. Justin Phillips looked pretty good to me. One of the guys, low-key guys that we really didn't hear much about before the preseason. I thought he flashed a little bit. Derek Forrest didn't play too well, in my opinion. I'll have to watch some of the film on that. Khaleke Hudson looked pretty good. Jamin Davis was solid. He had a couple good reps in coverage, and a couple nice tackles. Of course, he struggled a little bit at times, but overall was solid. Didn't see too much from him. Cole Holcomb looked good. Really nothing too shocking on defense. David Bada had a half a sack. Overall, the first team defense played pretty well. They did get gashed on that second drive, but they only allowed a field goal. The second team, and especially the third team defense, really wasn't great. They allowed a lot of rushing yards, weren't too great in the run game, but overall the first team defense, I'm excited how they played. They look good, and Montez Sweat wasn't playing, and a couple other guys weren't there, Matt Ioannidis, so we didn't get to see too much from there. James Smith-Williams was starting. He had a couple nice pressure. So let's go back to the offense. Some guys that I didn't think played too well. Tamarick Hemingway was awful. He was probably their worst tight end out there today. He dropped a pass that he should have caught. He also had 2 blocks where he just absolutely whiffed it. He had one block where I think that was the play where Heineke got sacked, and he just absolutely got demolished on that play, and that happened twice in that game. He also dropped a pass, and I think Ricky Seals-Jones, even though it was only 2 catches for 12 yards, he also had that touchdown that should have been a touchdown, but it was pass interference. I think he played pretty well, and I would say he's probably the tight end number 2, and maybe even John Bates. I think those two are definitely ahead of Tamarick Hemingway, especially after what we saw today. Oh, and I cannot believe I've waited this long to talk about Jarrett Patterson. He played really well in the passing game. Really good. 4 catches, 30 yards, and rushing. He had 10 carries for 40 yards, but I mean, a couple of those, he already got tackled behind the line of scrimmage, so that's not really on him. Let's see, this good tweet from John Kahn. They didn't really, at Buffalo, they didn't really use him as a pass catcher, but here they used him a lot as a pass catcher, and I thought he played really well. Heineke extended that play and had a really nice pass to Jarrett Patterson for an 11-yard gain, which set them up for the touchdown. So Patterson was probably one of the best players today. And we'll talk about Steven Montez real quick. I mean, he did have that good drive at the end, but I mean, those first few drives were just not good and really weren't giving many receivers chances to prove themselves. Kelvin Harmon, AGG, and I mean, you look at the 17 for 24, I think that's a little bit misleading because so many of those were checkdowns to Lamar Miller or Jonathan Williams. Got a bunch of completions off of that. I didn't think he played too well. Had a good, nice drive at the end there, but I really hope Kyle Allen can come back because I want to see the second, especially the third team receivers, get some work with him. AGG didn't do too much, had that 2-point conversion that was called back. I thought that was a catch, but whatever. It's the preseason. And then Kelvin Harmon had a nice catch, but I mean, Kelvin Harmon, AGG, Isaiah Wright, DeAndre Carter, all those guys, I mean, I think we need, hopefully Kyle Allen is back so they get more opportunities. Real quick, we'll wrap this up because this is a long video. I thought the punt returners were pretty good. DeAndre Carter looked good out there. 2 returns for 38 yards, 19 yards a return. That was pretty good. And Dax Milne had one too. No problems on the punt returns and kick returns. Steven Sims had a nice kick return, and Danny Johnson had one where it got called back for a penalty. Overall, though, guys, I think it was, a successful preseason game just because no one got injured. We did lose, and there were some, players that definitely struggled, like I said. Steven Montez, especially for those few possessions. First few possessions to Tamarick Hemingway, Dustin Hopkins, and a couple others. But we didn't get hurt, which really, no major injuries, which really is the biggest thing right there. We stayed healthy, and next preseason game against the Bengals, hopefully we see some of these other players, and hopefully Kyle Allen is back for that game. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. One quick thing, I think Sadiq Charles also looked pretty solid at left tackle. Some of the other guys, though, I didn't think Keith Ismail looked too good. A lot of the second team offensive line wasn't too great, but I thought the starting offensive line was pretty good. So thanks for watching. Subscribe if you guys are new. Hit that like button, and peace.